Well, it is the 15th day of June 2023. What a momentous day it has been. Good evening and welcome to Newswatch on Hope TV, where you look and live. I'm Tess Njenga and our sign language interpreter is Elizabeth Wanjiku. In the course of this bulletin, we will be hosting Dr. Juliet Kimemia, an entrepreneur and governance expert, as well as Pius Nunda, who is the Director, Finance and Administration, Howard and Associates Strategic Consulting Limited, to discuss Ruto'S Maiden budget, so stick around for that. We will also appreciate your feedback on our social media platforms on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter at Hope TV Kenya. Let us begin. Now, Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndung'u today presented his maiden 3.6 trillion shillings national budget for the financial year 2023-2024. The budget is a 6.5% increase from the previous year, 3.38 trillion shillings. The budget reading is done concurrently in other East African countries presenting their financial estimates. Kenya's budget policy statement is titled Bottom-Up Economic Transformation Agenda for Inclusive Growth and is the first budget under the Kenya Kwanza government. According to CS Ndung'u, the budget estimates are anchored on 5 concerns raised by Kenyans, among them the need to address the high cost of living.
The financial year 2023-2024 budget has been prepared against a background of a challenging external and domestic environment. In addition, the COVID-19 pandemic, Kenya has, over the past years, suffered and also a series of devastating negative and persistent shocks that include the worst drought in decades, as well as adverse spillover effects of the conflict in Eastern Europe and a tight global financial market condition. The combination of all these negative and continuing shocks are what we describe as a perfect storm that has confronted this new administration. The extreme climate change events have emerged as key drivers of food security and increased cost of living. Indeed, our people are currently confronted with increasing higher prices of basic foods, commodities, energy, and transport. This calls for urgent and decisive interventions, especially on our supply side response. Mr. Speaker, in fulfillment of the requirements under the Constitution on public participation, we accorded Kenyans an opportunity to share their views on issues that needed to be addressed in this budget. Mr. Speaker, we received from many Kenyans proposals and suggestions that have informed the priorities outlined in this budget statement. The key concerns raised by the public can broadly be clustered around 5 issues. 1, the high cost of living. 2, the high cost of unemployment. 3, and this is mostly among the youth. 3, the high tax burden. And 4, the wastage of public resources. And finally, the high public debt.
Now, this Thursday, the education sector is the biggest gainer thanks to an allocation of 630 billion shillings. This is 27.4% of the budget as President William Ruto's administration seeks to provide accessible and quality education for all Kenyans. However, the health sector has received a funding cut after the National Treasury reduced its allocation by 5.6 billion shillings. Gloria Musimbi now reports.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The total budget for 2023-2024.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
As the Ministry of Treasury tabled the 2023-2024 budget statement before the Parliament on Thursday, school heads continue to complain about the delayed disbursement of capitation funds to public primary schools to enable funding of junior secondary schools as education and the day-to-day operations of the schools. The education sector has been allocated a total of 627.7 billion Kenyan shillings, secondary education taking a chunk of it at 103.9 billion Kenyan shillings, primary education taking 32.3 billion Kenyan shillings. However, the capitation of junior secondary schools have been increased to 25.5 billion Kenyan shillings from 15 billion Kenyan shillings. At the same time, university education has been allocated 127.4 billion to 30 billion Kenyan shillings. The government has also allocated 323.8 billion to Teachers Service Commission. Part of the funds will go towards hiring 20,000 teachers and more technical and vocational education and training TVET trainers, as well as the operationalization of 21 KMTC campuses in hiring additional lecturers and staff. Basic education have been allocated 147.8 billion, whereas vocational education and training has been allocated 27.9 billion Kenyan shillings. With the school feeding program allocation being 5 billion Kenyan shillings, speaking to Hope TV, a section of Kenyans decried the budgetary increment in the education sector, stating that they are still grappling the high cost of living.
Ninawaambia tu ukweli wa Mungu, maisha imekuwa ngumu. Hii maisha sio yale maisha tulikuwa tunatarajia. Tulipiga kura tukafikiria tutakuwa na maisha mazuri, lakini yale maisha tulipigia kura ni maisha ya kuumia.
The country is not okay. Atembee kwa slums, atembee mali pengine, aone watoto wamekaa nyumbani kwa sababu hawaendi shule, na mtoto hataenda shule kama hajakula. So when you say elimu umeweka kiasi fulani ya pesa na mtoto mwenyewe ako na njaa, kuna vile mtoto ataenda shule. What I'm sure about that, mtoto hataenda kwa shule ikiwa hajashiba.
The Hustler Fund receives an additional 10 billion shillings to support and entrepreneurial endeavors, while the budget also provided funds to double the number of interns employed by the Public Service Commission from 4,000 to 8,000, each earning a monthly salary of 25,000 shillings. On the other hand, Kenyans have criticized the reduced 10.8 billion Hustler Fund allocation from the promised 100 billion Kenyan shillings during the Kenya Kwanza campaign. The Health Ministry received an allocation of 141.2 billion, down from 146.8 billion Kenyan shillings in the 2022 to 2023 financial year. Of the allocation is 116 billion Kenyan shillings, which will go to the Medical Services Department, and 24.6 billion to the Public Health Standards. And 21 billion shillings has been allocated for curative and reproductive health, while 7.3 billion for preventive and promotive health services, while 4.9 billion Kenyan shillings will go towards health research and innovation, 1.8 billion to health policy standards and regulations, and 15 billion shillings to health resources development and innovation. Reporting for Hope TV Newswatch, I'm Gloria Musimbi.
Much appreciated, Gloria, for that report. Now, the judiciary has received a major boost in its efforts to disperse justice effectively in the budget allocations of the 2023-2024 financial year. In the estimates presented in Parliament by Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ndungu Njuguna, the Justice Martha Koome-led judiciary received 22 billion shillings allocation to boost its efforts towards timely dispensation of justice. Dolly Murigi has more.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The total budget for 2023-2024 financial estimate by the Kenya Kwanza government stands at 3.6 trillion, marking an increase from 3.3 trillion in the previous year. According to the Treasury Cabinet Secretary, Professor Njuguna Ndungu, who was presenting his first budget and Kenya Kwanza's first budget to push the bottom-up economic agenda, the 2023-2024 budget is formulated in the context of the numerous external shocks, including the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the lingering effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. The judiciary got a reason to smile in the budget estimate after the Kenya Kwanza government fulfilled its budget allocation increment promise. The judiciary now gets 22 billion shillings to support the administration of justice. The move is in line with Kenya Kwanza's pledge to strengthen and institutionalize judicial independence. In November 2022, the Kenya Kwanza government promised to increase the annual judiciary budget by 3 billion annually. President Ruto said the budget will help construct the necessary infrastructure needed on matters security, to step up the war on crime and enhance support to the administration of justice. Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndungu says that the National Assembly should affect the budget allocation of 856 million to equip the National Forensic Laboratory. Dolly Rigimbuvi for Hope TV.
Thank you, Dolly, for that report. Now, Azimio members of Parliament today walked out of Parliament in defiance against the reading of the 2023-2024 budget, as Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndung'u was just about to read the budget. The legislators say that they reject it in totality as they did not approve of it since the finance bill that forms the thrust of the budget is yet to be debated. Our reporter Joy Mochache brings us more.
Hata ingawa watu ya opposition wametoka nje wametuacha, lakini lazima tungesoma budget.
Hakuna jambo likubwa kwamba ati wabunge wa Azimio wametoka. Wamefanya vizuri kutoka ili tuendeleze kazi ya serikali, wao wakiendelea na kazi ile wamezoea ya kupingana na ya maandamano.
As President William Ruto's administration works to provide affordable and high quality education, this accounts for 27.4% of the budget. The allocation for the Higher Education Loans Board has increased by double, from 15 billion shillings to 30 billion shillings.
For me to present to this august house and to the people of Kenya.
Nominated UD MP A. Joseph Wanaina spoke on the allocations, saying,
Na mimi nataka kuambia wananchi namna hii serikali ina maono mzuri. Na wenye walikuwa wanapinga tena, mimi najua walikuwa wanapinga sababu wanajua hii budget ni mzuri.
Kumaanisha kwamba sasa ambao walikuwa nakopa 100% zaidi ya wale walikuwa wataweza kupata access kwa Higher Education Loans Board.
6. The government has established the National Open University in order to make higher education inexpensive, affordable, accessible, inclusive, and attainable to all. The university will create its charter before the end of this month, that is June 2023.
The national government's health services have received some 141 billion Kenya shillings, with additional monies going to the counties. In the meantime, road building is funded with 250 billion Kenya shillings, with ongoing and stalled projects being completed first. Onesmus Nyong'o, MP of Kajiado North, said that these allocations in the education, health and development sector are going to transform the nation.
That is for counties. For judiciary, wameongezewa shilingi bilioni 4.4 billion ili mahali ambapo hawako wanaweza kufikisha huduma zao za watu kupata haki, sasa wanaweza kutengeneza koti. Leo nimeona mahakama makuu jaji amekuwa pale Migori, Siaya, akifungua high court. Vile vile tungependa wafungue kule ambapo hawajakuwa kifikisha huduma zao. Kwa hivyo imekuwa budget nzuri, na hii budget itasimamishwa vizuri na ile inaitwa finance bill ambayo wameleta proposals nyingi sana na ambazo sisi tunaunga mkono ili serikali iweze kutimiza ahadi ile ambayo imewekwa.
The budget has been read, and on the minds of all Kenyans is a hope that these funds will be used appropriately. Joy Mochache reporting for Hope TV.
Thank you, Joy, for that report. Now, moving on, President William Ruto has challenged the International Labour Organization, ILO, to expand its dialogue to include the unemployed. He pointed out that the ILO system has been chiefly worker-oriented, yet labour rights also touch the unemployed. President Ruto made the remarks today during the International Labour Organization's World of Work Summit in Geneva, Switzerland. The president said it was alarming that Africa has recorded the highest unemployment rates in the world, with many countries reporting between a quarter and a third of their populations as jobless.
The ILO system is worker-oriented in that it primarily represents workers' interests. Yet, labor rights are affected by both employment and unemployment. It should concern us very deeply that unemployment rates in Africa are some of the world's highest, with many countries reporting between a quarter and a third of their populations not engaged in secure, productive employment. As we speak about matters pertaining to work, we must also speak about the millions of jobless people whose voices cannot be heard at a conference like this. The aspirations of the unemployed matter and should be seen to matter, especially for ILO. Social justice for all makes it imperative to expand the social dialogue from the tripartite model, I suggest, to a four-sided forum of workers, the unemployed, employers, and government. Governments, employers, and workers must be equally concerned about the unemployment crisis and committed to finding sustainable solutions to it in order to bring the majority of the world's population into the ILO's traditional constituency. Majority of the world's unemployed people live in the global south, and especially in the continent that I come from. On average, Africa invests 30% of its annual budgets, or $150 billion, on educating and training of its youth and workforce. Only 30% of them join the workforce, and all the way to 70% stay unemployed.
Well, on that note, we take our first break on Newswatch tonight. Don't go too far. We'll be back with plenty more news.
Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content, of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries, with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station, with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live.
Now, I know this looks like a plate, but it's not exactly a plate. There's a lot of potential in this country, a lot of it. And we need to find a way of tapping that potential and pushing it forward to execution.
Instead of exporting our labor, can we also create employment for people around here?
Very, very smooth. It flows like a river. As long as I am right with God, I am right with the government, and I'm right with my staff, my business will stay afloat.
Welcome back. The Evangelical Alliance of Kenya, EAK, has appointed Bishop Philip Kitoto as its new chairman following the retirement of Bishop David Oginde, who chairs the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, I beg your pardon. During EAK's members' annual meeting, Joseph Likavo also retired as vice chairman, while Father Lagat was appointed to replace him. Meanwhile, Bishop Callisto Odede was appointed a member of the board. According to EAK Secretary General Nelson Makanda, Oginde and Likavo have been key pillars of the coalition, which leads thousands of evangelical churches in the country.
I want to take this time to thank the outgoing chairman and vice chair, Bishop Dr. David Oginde and Bishop Joseph Likavo, who was his vice chair, for a wonderful leadership to the evangelical community in Kenya. They have demonstrated through deed and word that they are men of God, they are faithful to the word, and they have generously given towards the work of God in the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya. And so we want to thank them. I want to thank Bishop Chair, especially Oginde, as he leaves, and pray that the Lord will use him in his new station at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission.
I have served as chairman for the last several years, and today I was handing over to a new chairman. And the members elected as new chair, Bishop Philip Kitoto of the Kenya Assemblies of God, to take over the ministry and the baton from myself so that he can lead the ministry into the next level. Assisting him as his vice chair will be Bishop Lagat of AGC, who will serve as the vice chair together with Philip Kitoto and the board that has been in place with new members. We want to trust that they are going to take charge of EAK and be at the forefront of guiding this nation so that we can get to the place where we are known as a people of integrity rather than as we have been known before as one of the most corrupt nations in the world.
In a bid to improve agricultural systems in the country, the Food and Land Use Coalition, together with partners from the public and private sector, have kicked off the first Regenerative Agriculture Conference in Kenya. The two-day conference provides a platform for sharing knowledge, experiences and best practices in promoting regenerative agriculture to combat drought and desertification for sustainable development in Kenya. And as Grace Ahati now reports, the conference comes in the run-up to the World Day to Combat Desertification and Drought to be commemorated on Saturday, June 17th, 2023.
As the country continues to grapple with prolonged drought and food insecurity, the Food and Land Use Coalition FOLU has commenced its two-day Regenerative Agriculture Conference, which is the first of its kind in Kenya. The conference has brought together stakeholders in Kenya in the areas of food and land use systems, agriculture, SMEs, policy, water and resilience to climate change, among others, in efforts to combat drought and desertification in the country. Speaking on behalf of First Lady Rachel Ruto during the event in Nairobi, Deputy Director of Environment Office of the First Lady, Arnold Kipchumba, noted that her office has put in place both short-term and long-term measures to curb food insecurity in the country.
The President last year committed this country to growing 15 billion trees by 2032. So the Office of the First Lady has committed to growing 500 million trees by 2032 in the same period. So this ideally is to support the President meet his target, but more importantly is we are promoting what we're calling the green tree commodity initiatives. So we are looking at fruit trees and tree commodities. So these are tree species that have economic value and can also, you can eat. So we are looking at avocado, macadamia, cashews, oranges, even gum arabica. And looking at the end-to-end value chain and seeing how can we support these communities, one, in restoring their ecosystems and their farmlands, but more importantly also earning incomes out of this restoration.
The Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, one of the event organizers, has noted that by 2050, climate predictions indicate that Kenya will have increased incidences of floods and droughts, as well as increased instances of pests and diseases. According to AGRA Kenya Country Manager John Masharia, the conference is an important forum for stakeholders and farmers to come up with measures to mitigate and adapt to technologies that will help them survive the changes.
This particular conference brings together stakeholders from government, from private sector, from civil society and farmers to have a candid conversation around the cost-benefit analysis of adoption of regenerative practices, as well as adopting some of the products that are out there in the market, but also having critical questions about the use of our land in terms of biodiversity, this question of bees, and agrochemicals, the use of organic and inorganic fertilizer, and quite a number of other thorny issues so that we begin to sensitize people to what is possible.
Concerning the youth who shy away from joining the agricultural sector, Masharia urged them to engage in food production for employment opportunities and meeting the growing demand of food in the country.
We still need youth who can actually still engage in production as a productive way of employment, because the demand for food is not necessarily abating, it's actually increasing. We grow in Kenya by 1 million people per year. So in the next 10 years, we need 10 million, we have 10 million more mouths to feed. So demand for food does not reduce, it increases.
Reporting for Hope TV Newswatch, I'm Grace Ahati.
Much appreciated, Grace, for that report. And the government will resolve historical injustices in Lamu County and other parts of the country in a consultative and participatory manner. According to Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki, political, religious and community leaders who are inciting members of the public to engage in acts of violence and destruction of property in the guise of resolving long-standing issues will be dealt with firmly and decisively in accordance with the law. And to combat the threat of terrorism and violent extremism, the government will invest 20 billion shillings to supply security officers with modern equipment. Members of the public have meanwhile been urged to do their patriotic duty to volunteer information that will help thwart attacks and apprehend planners of such criminal activities.
Ile tu kitu naomba ni moja, wananchi. Naomba tumalize shida zetu baina zetu hapa. Tuwe na umoja wetu kama jamii ya hapa. Kwa sababu wakati hakuna mgawanyiko katika jamii hapa, adui hataona mahali ya kujificha. Sijui kama tunaelewana. Na maneno ambayo yanatufanya tuwe na tofauti zetu, lazima tuketi chini, tujadiliane shida baada ya shida na tutoe suluhisho ya kila shida ili tuishi kwa amani kama jamii moja, watu wa nchi moja, watu ambao tumeumbwa na Mwenyezi Mungu sisi wote ambao ni wananchi wa hapa. Kuna matatizo mengi hapa. Masuala ya haki za jamii mbalimbali. Jamii ambao ni jamii asili ambazo zimekuwa hapa tangu jadi, na vile vile jamii zingine ambazo ziko hapa zilikuja baadaye, lakini ni jamii pia za hapa. Lazima tupate dawa ya sisi zote kuishi hapa kwa amani, na mahali makosa imetokelezea turekebishe hayo makosa.
Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content, of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries, with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station, with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live.
Thank you for watching Hope TV, the station where you look and live. For feedback regarding our programming, you can WhatsApp us through 0708 222 323, SMS 22232, website www.hopemediakenya.org, or scan the QR code below.
Because women talk more and they are not very strong physically, when they want to hurt their husbands or their children or anybody, they use the tongue.
Families under God.
How can we continue to live carelessly in ease?
Join Reverend Dr. Judy Mbugua as she imparts families through prayer, evangelism, and social transformation with the Word of God.
You know, God is not asking you to manage. He's asking you to be available. Amen. And He will make you able and capable.
Families under God, only on Hope TV.
The Asian community in Kenya has been nationally recognized as the 44th tribe of the people of this great nation.
For me, God is real in Christianity. I talk to Him, He talks to me.
I fail, He forgives me.
When I first read the first book of Genesis, it gave me an orderly sense of accounts of creation. Day 1 is what He does. Day 2, He creates this. Day 3.
Every third Thursday of the month, we bring you Asia Testify,
where we will be listening to life-transforming stories of Asian believers who have walked with the Lord. Only here on Hope TV. Look and live.
Welcome back, and as alluded earlier, we have in studio none other than Dr. Juliet Kimemia, who is an entrepreneur and governance expert and also worked as a CEC in the county government of Kiambu. And also joining us in studio live is Pius Nunda, who is the Director Finance and Administration, Howard and Associates Strategic Consulting Limited. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We are so glad that you made time for us on this day that Kenya has had its maiden, can we call it Ruto'S Maiden budget, 2022-2024. Your immediate thoughts. Let's start with Mr. Pius.
Thank you so much, Tess, and good evening, everyone. I just want to say that this being the very first budget of the Ruto-led government, a lot of things that can be seen, given that it is just about 9 months since they came into office. I must appreciate that across the nation, what we have seen is what I would call a good balance in the budget, although with a few areas that can still be looked at. Yes, so in a nutshell, I would say it's a budget that is well balanced, but of course, when we delve in, we'll be able to give further thoughts.
Well, welcome, Dr. Juliet. This is perhaps one of the most ambitious budgets that Kenya has had. What's your take on 3.7 trillion budget?
It's actually not 3.7. It's 4.4 trillion budget.
Explain,
what is 3.7? What is 3.7 is the general budget, but when they are presenting it, or in the budget policy statement, there is what we call appropriation in aid, which is a few hundreds of billions, and there's also conditional grants. So that is how it's coming to 4.4. Yeah, so it's 3.7 billion, but in the books, because of including what is called appropriation in aid and the conditional grants, it comes to 4.4. It is the highest ever since we got independence. It's very ambitious. And to me, like my colleague has said, it is quite balanced because yesterday we saw the finance bill being debated and being unpacked by the chairman of the finance committee. And today we have seen what is going to be financed by what was proposed yesterday. So it is workable, especially if what the minister has proposed as amendments in the policy and legal frameworks are implemented.
Would you help us understand why the executive tends to get the lion's share, 2.2 trillion of the budget?
It is it is quite interesting that all the time the executive gets the lion's share. Counties got is it
6 something
and 86 billion?
Yeah, roughly.
And plus conditional grant, they got 420 something. Why is because a lot of money goes to the ministries. Like for example, if you look at the ministry that has the highest allocation is Ministry of Education. It got over 600 billion.
Yes.
Ministry of Health, Ministry of Infrastructure, and all those really are in the executive. So they take the lion's share of the budget, they take the lion's share of the responsibilities. And to me, it is in order.
Yeah, I would just add that, you know, a lot of functions are still being controlled by the national government. So key ministries. So you'll find some of the dockets, some of the ministries that were never, that haven't been devolved, still have to be funded from the national government. Yeah. So so of course, when you talk about the executive, you want to look at all that goes from State House to the various ministries and all that. Yeah. So, but of course, it's a budget that is it's high compared to even what would go to the county governments. Yeah. So it's almost 5-6 times. Yeah. So that's quite high. So because we also know that even some of the functions that have been devolved, you still have, you know, some of the need is being taken care of at the national government. Yeah.
There is this issue of pending bills, especially in the counties, that has been allocated over 500 billion shillings today. What do you think that the government should do to curb this issue of pending bills? It's been cropping up in the counties, in the national government, everywhere.
Yeah, I know Dr. Kimeme might weigh in, having worked in the county government. I have never worked for the any government, but I from what I know, it's a budget that has been given, and of course, even in entirety, the budget that has been given, we appreciate that the government does not have all that money, together. So even the 500 plus billion that has been set aside to be able to take care of the pending bills does not necessarily mean that that money is there. However, maybe one of the things that we would advise is that the government, for example, and that is county government, for example, needs to prioritize, you know, some of those bills, because you find some bills are pending as far as when the devolution was implemented for the very first time. So what we would advise is that some of those pending bills needs to be prioritized so that they don't become you know, an issue year after year. Yeah, so maybe that's what I can say for now about the pending bills. Yeah.
To add on what my brother has said, the budget making process vis-a-vis absorption of what has been allocated are two totally different and extremely contradicting issues. Because like now, my county of Kiambu, just the other day, they passed a supplementary budget of 17 billion on top of the 9 billion that is allocated from the equalization or revenue share from the National Treasury Exchequer. They are expecting to raise own revenue, and the grants are also included in that. So if they are not able to raise own revenue, and if they're not able to, the National Treasury is not able to release the funds. Like now, it is 4 months late in releasing the funds. So that is where all these pending bills come from. Because you have budgeted, you have contracted, but the payments are delayed, or the money, like what my friend has said here, the money is never there. So if there's anything that has confused me all my life, is why every year in, year out, budgets are raised, knowing very well that the money that will be generated will not be able to finance that development. Another issue is the policy of financing development. Like now, listening keenly to what the professor said today, the money that is available is what was audited in 2019. So the money that will be spent on this budget, you see it is of 4.4 billion, but the money that is available to finance it is what was collected in 2019 and has been audited. So the fiscal policy is very complicated and not practical at all. So I am a bit disappointed because I was expecting that we'll either maintain the last financial year's ceiling, but now adding 700 billion, knowing very well that it will just continue building up the pending bills. And in the meantime, the middle class has really suffered because of the pending bills. Businesses have closed. Employment opportunities have been busted because if you are owed 30, 40 million and you had a factory or you did you did some road construction or you built a market, all the people who are working for you will not get jobs. So pending bills have had a very negative.
What's your recommendation on elimination of pending bills going forward? Having worked in the county.
It's the most frustrating thing because from my own experience, every day I had 4 or 5 contractors coming to my office telling me, Waziri, please help me get paid. And I'm like, imagine I can't because it's not possible. Because when the money is released, it pays the pending bills that have been in the IFMI system. You know, there is a integrated financial management system, and you cannot jump the queue. So you go to the county right now, you will get pending bills of 2014, of 2015. They have to be paid first. Then, of course, when governors come in, they have spent a lot of money in campaigning and, you know, so there's a lot of manipulation of the system so that what is paid is for either friends of the governor or people who funded the campaign and, you know, or even the governors themselves trying to recover their losses for the campaign. So those pending bills remain there, new ones are created, and it's a total mess.
We hope that some measures will be put in place going forward, because I heard the Deputy President speaking about auditing those pending bills, that there are some of them that are viable, some of them that are not. But oh well, we wait to see what the government will do. Perhaps Pius, help us understand.
Let me comment on that issue of auditing.
Yes.
It is a very political statement.
What do you mean?
Very, very political, because looking at 2017, many of the governors never came back, right? So whoever came and took over the counties was competing with the governor that was incumbent now 2013, 2017, right? So many of them, many of the governors that took over in 2017 said they will not pay pending bills of the previous regime because the money was used to fight them. You know, because it was a contest, and this contest has a lot of enmity. So they use that word auditing. We are auditing, and we will not pay. But in black and white, in truth, they will not pay because the money was used for campaign.
I believe that's debatable. That's quite debatable, because we have had governors come in and talk of ghost workers and people that were being paid that did not exist, and businesses. So I feel it's debatable, but we get your point. Let's move to the revenue generation, Mr. Pius. KRA is expected to raise over 3 trillion now to be able to finance this budget. Is this sustainable? How viable is it?
Yeah, I want to say that Kenya Revenue Authority is one of the, of course, is the key revenue generator for the government. And we have seen over the years, KRA has always been surpassing any given target. And we have seen that from when we had a budget of 1.7 trillion and they would, you know, they would reach to about maybe 1.3, 1.4. And of course, you know, the budget has been, actually the last, I would say about 10 years, we have seen an upward trend of the budget, of course, going up because of many other reasons. Population increase, development from here and there. But what I would say that even if KRA were to hit that target of 3 trillion, the challenge then we have as a country is just like what Dr. Kimema was saying. We have the budget that the common Kenyan know, leave alone the 4.4 that she's talking about, the 3.6 something, that's 3.7. We are at a point where KRA has been given a target of 3 trillion. And we know then there's a deficit, obviously, of about 700 billion.
Yeah.
Now, we have a deficit, and how we have always been expecting to bridge the gap between our income and the budget is to borrow. So again, we are going to borrow about 702 billion. But you remember where the catch is. Already, as a country, we are at 9.6 trillion debt, leaving us with just a window of about 400 billion that we can borrow. So then what will happen? And then of course it means that if we then borrow the 400 billion, then we will have hit the mark, unless now the bill goes back to the parliament for amendment, so that we are allowed to be able to to break the ceiling. I remember at one point it was 9 trillion, so it was revised. So coming back to your question, KRA are capable, by the way, of raising the 3 trillion in target, only if they are able to use all possible avenues to net. The challenge that we have been having, Tess, is that yes, we have been talking about VAT, excess duty, and many other taxes that generate income. But the government, KRA, I am sure, one of the challenges that we have seen is that they have not been able to close the possible loopholes that make them keep, what I would call, make them miss the target, simply because by many other persons who are supposed to be paying taxes, dodging KRA or in one way or the other. But otherwise, Kenya Revenue Authority, I think from where they are, the target of 3 trillion is well achievable. So now the challenge that we have is how then the government is going to bridge the gap between the proposed revenue to be generated and the budget.
You talked about the deficit, which projections by the government is that there will be some borrowing locally, about over 500 billion. Yeah. So that means that the government is trying not to hit the ceiling, because whatever remains is less than 400 billion, as you had mentioned. What's your take in terms of internal borrowing? Are we able to give the government over 500 billion shillings? As that means locally, isn't it?
Through treasury bonds. Yeah. We have to. We have the capacity and potential. If the government really solidifies the PPP infrastructure, they will be able to harness a lot of private sector investments. Then I saw the professor talk about a Eurobond that is maturing, I think of more than 1 trillion in 2024. And once that has matured, then we'll be able to inject some energy in our fiscal infrastructure. But what made me excited about today's budget is the proposals for policy and legal frameworks amendment to strengthen KRA. Like, for example, they talked about betting and how difficult it is to get to net the money that circulates in, and that is a very lucrative business sector, and it has very many players. So there is a recommendation for a review of the law, so that KRA will be able to maximize the netting of the 5% tax The same applies to the digital infrastructure, or they're calling it superhighway or something like that. There's a proposal to amend the law to enable the KRA get the legal muscle to collect. So a lot of money will come in. There's also a proposal for criminalization of imposters. There are very many people who pretend that, in quotes, they are KRA, and that is where a lot of people escape paying taxes. So they work in cohort, and you'll find them even in the corridors of KRA. So there's a proposal that the law is amended that anybody who is an imposter will be subjected to criminal justice. Then there is a proposal for the PPP infrastructure. There's even a fund that has been proposed. So all that combined will give a lot of incentives to the private sector. And if the proposals they have put in for paying pending bills are actualized and prioritized, then we will have very many companies revive new industrial activities happening.
Unfortunately, our time is is spent. I just want us to conclude on an issue. Azimio members of parliament walked out of the reading of the bill. I don't know, what are your sentiments on any implication on the budget? Does it make it null and void? Does it affect it in any way?
Oh, okay, thank you very
Or
much.
what do you think of it?
To add to that issue of KRA, then I'll come to that
shortly, very shortly.
You know, with the proposed policy framework and the legal framework is very good, by the way. But one of the things, one of the demerits we have as a nation is the whole issue of corruption that we don't want to talk about. KRA might be in a position, might have muscles, might be strengthened to be able to even to, you know, net even up to 3, even over and above that. But if the loopholes are not closed, then we are as good as doing, you know, ourselves and nothing. Now, the question that asked about the Azimio legislatures walking out, and of course, by and large, because we have not even, I know time is over, but we have not even dug into the budget itself. Certain areas that we feel should have been, you know, reviewed. It's being said this is the hustler's budget, yet that real hustler is feeling left out there, and we know the cry. I want to say this, that, and this is what I said at the beginning when we were starting, that it's not that the budget in entirety is in balance, and that's why we say we saw a lot of balance. However, there are certain areas that you know, the president, and you know, because the president is the leader of the government. I mean, this is his government, and he would whatever want to have his way in whichever manner. And we saw yesterday during the passing of the bill, I mean, if you want something to be passed, and the numbers are there in the parliament, what Azimio leaders should have done, and this is what I wanted to say even as I conclude on that matter, because not every section of the budget was wrong. I would, if I were them, unfortunately I am not, I would have sat, because whichever way, their walking out does not change anything. The budget has been passed. Actually, you know, the CS coming to read the budget is not reading so that he seeks approval for the budget to be implemented. This is a budget that is reading something that had been passed already by the finance committee, parliamentary finance committee. So this is just a statement. So by them walking out, of course, in protest, but that does not pour cold water into the budget. Does not mean that the budget, it will just speak out there that majority of the people are dissatisfied because, Tess, look at the cost of living. Honestly, if I were the government, or if I were in the position of the people who are developing the budget, or one of the things we would have been very intentional about, to ensure that we do everything possible to reduce the cost of living. It's just been 9 months. For whatever reason, I do not know, that since the new government took over, and Dr. Kimema, you'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Sugar has doubled. True or false? I bought sugar at 229 shillings. before the elections. And these are the realities. Today, Tess, how much is sugar? 430. That is, for the, some places, actually, up country, it is 500 shillings. So that is more than double. Look at the cost of unga. And these are the basic commodities. So if the government would have been more intentional to look at what matters the most, because you will talk about many other things, talking about the development fund, talking about, we have had all these policy reviews talking about TVET, empowering young people. And of course, in there also, those young people are complaining that, they have not been given their due. What is really due to them?
Thank you,
so I would, just to be able to answer that, I would say it was very unfortunate, but of course, as an expression of that they're standing with the people. But I can assure you, the poor people, the common person, the people on the ground, have slept in the places they sleep every day, today, even without walking out. That does not mean that those MPs have gone to, to fill with them where they live, or to go and dine with them where they dine. No. It was just a show of disappointment for the fact that some of the information in the statement were not favorable
Dr.
to them
Juliet,
and many others.
shortly, please, because time is up.
I was a bit disappointed by the walkout, particularly because on the public gallery there were very many students who had come to listen to the budget, and that was not a good show. I think yesterday's voting no was sufficient to send their statement, but walking out was extremely disrespectful to the nation and to all of us, and even to those children. We need to lead by example, and we need to demonstrate a spirit of tolerance. Number two, I want to support the sentiments of my friend.
Yes.
The budget was extremely quiet on maize, on sugar, on coffee. Even after the big conference, we went to Meru with Rigiji. It was quiet on rice and very loud on cotton and leather. Extremely unrealistic in that aspect. I would really call for a review. Whatever has been allocated to leather and cotton needs to go to rice, maize, and sugar. It is extremely important. And it's a lot of money that has been taken to cotton, which was actually the amount allocated last year. And I don't think, you have ever seen a cotton farm in this country? So they need to stop lying, and when they start discussing item by item, my proposal is they reallocate. We don't need cotton, we need rice, we need sugar, and we need maize.
Thank you, Dr. Juliet Kimemia. That is a good place to end it. And Dr. Pius, can I call you Doctor as well?
Thank you. Some of these things are still invitation.
We have barely scratched the surface. I know there was so much we can talk about, but unfortunately we don't have enough time. Maybe we can do this another time. But thank you so much for making time for us. Dr. Juliet Kimemia, who is a governance expert and also was, as he is in the county of Kiambu.
Yes.
So we really appreciate you, Pius Nunda, Director, Finance and Administration, Howard and Associate Strategic Consulting Limited. And that's where we conclude the interview this evening. We'll be back with sports news.
Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content, of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries, with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station, with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live.
Welcome back. Now in sports, Fatma Samora is set to step down after 7 years as FIFA Secretary General to spend more time with her family. Appointment in 2016, the 60-year-old will oversee this year's Women World Cup in Australia and New Zealand before leaving at the end of the year. Samora, the first female and non-European in the role, was a surprise choice after the election of Gianni Infantino as FIFA's president. During Samora's time as head of FIFA's administration, women's football has become more popular and more organized. The 2023 Women World Cup will be the biggest ever women's competition and features 32 teams. And Croatia are one win from their first major title after beating hosts Netherlands 4-2 in a dramatic UEFA Nations League semi-final. Substitute Bruno Petkovic struck from distance in extra time before Luka Modric's penalty settled a remarkable game in Rotterdam. A 96th minute Dutch equalizer from Noah Lang had denied Croatia in normal time. Dalik's side will now play Italy or Spain in Sunday's final, while the Dutch face a third place face-off. And it's a wrap on Newswatch tonight. Many thanks for everyone who has made this bulletin a success, including our guests who graciously gave us their time and sentiments. I'm Tess Njenga, and our sign language interpreter is Elizabeth Wanjiku. Till next time, have a good night.